What's up, everybody? That time of the day, that time of the week, that time of the month.
Yes, it is.
I'm Big Papa.
And I'm Just Jeff.
You're listening to The Good,
The Band,
and The Ugly coming to you live, sort of live.
Yeah.
On the Ultimate Ears studio.
Yes.
Gotta give props where props are due.
That's right. Have to.
Because of Ultimate Ears.
That's right.
We can hear lovely. So, what's going on, brother?
Not too much, man. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
You come right from
I did.
Right from work today?
I did.
It's all good.
It's all right.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
Good. Everything was good.
Yeah. Family's good?
Yeah.
You're not giving me anything today,
No.
are you? That's all right. Hey, we have a great show for you, as always. We've been looking forward to this one for quite a while. The gentleman that's about to come into the studio has played with, oh my gosh, some of the most iconic bands that we've followed. My God, since 85, I think, or whatever.
Probably before, 83, somewhere in there.
So I just can't wait to have him on here. So I'm not even going to be beating around the bush. Let's invite Mr. Dave Ellefson to the studio. Look at that.
Right on cue.
Like magic.
That's how David Lee Roth would come in, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Sing an Ice Cream Man or something, right?
straight off the Crazy from the Heat video.
That's there you go. Yep.
7 different versions of Not for Teacher. Country version. Yeah.
So it's funny. I just finished reading Alex Van Halen's book, Brothers, and it's just so awesome. I read all of those books because, Eddie never wrote a memoir.
Right.
And, Sammy wrote really, I guess, the first one. And I heard there were reports that Eddie was not happy about that. But it's like Eddie wasn't going to write one. You know what I mean? He just wasn't that kind of guy, I don't think, that would write a memoir. And so Sammy kind of came out first and, told some funny stories and all that kind of stuff. And I'm also a Sammy fan. I'm not the biggest Sammy Van Halen fan, but I'm definitely a Sammy Hagar fan. Like I used to play his songs when I was growing up in Minnesota. We would play songs from his solo records, This was a few years before I Can't Drive 55, and I loved it. And then, of course, the very first one was from Montrose, so
right.
And that's that's why speaking of NAMM, they always ask me to jump in on the Ronnie Montrose Remembered, because it's funny. They always advertise all these people who played in Montrose, and I one day at Keith, the singer, who I was in the band with, they said, "How come you guys never mention me? I was actually in the band for 2 years. we played with Def Leppard, we played with Pat Travers. I mean, we did some pretty big gigs. Ronnie's manager managed Steve Miller, and so we were on some pretty cool gigs. They said, "You guys never even freaking mentioned me," So it's. I'm not a Bay Area guy, but it was a fun gig, But then back over to Van Halen, then I love Brad Talinsky, his book Eruption,
right,
that he and Chris wrote, and it's great because Brad's actually sharing a booth space with us with Ellison Coffee this year at NAMM.
Cool.
And it's interesting because last year at NAMM, Brad was telling me. He was at a different booth, and I ran into him, and he said he was writing this book about the MC5. And then it wasn't but a couple of months after that, Wayne Kramer died. And so I guess he got everything he needed for the book,
Yeah.
And so I think that book just came out or is just coming out or something. So, it's all this good stuff. So I love Brad's, Brad was the editor of Guitar World magazine, so we had a lot of interfacing with him,
right?
The big years of print media, when Guitar World was kind of the deal, So, and then there's Steve Rosen's Tone Chasers, which I like. I find that book. I find him to be a little bit too much of a fanboy for a guy who was supposedly that close to Eddie. He seems a little bit of a fanboy. That's just my take on it.
Yeah.
Whereas, Talinsky they cut and pasted a bunch of interviews and stuff that they did. And I thought tells a very well-rounded, comprehensive story.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of feel like you're reading Eddie's memoir, the way they put it together.
Right.
So then Steve sent me a copy of his book. So I'm not trying to be critical and, in public with him of that book, but that's the only, if I had any criticism at all, it feels like he was, because he's got some great stories of him Eddie coming over to his house in Laurel Canyon right after they had recorded Van Halen 2, and it wasn't even out yet. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
And I always love reading, like Alex is talking about, that, you know, he and Eddie lived at home in that little house in Pasadena, which I think hopefully has been spared from the LA fires right now. Yeah. That, you know, they lived at home. Eddie lived at home until he married Valerie Bertinelli, and then they finally moved out. You know what I mean? And I think Alex lived at home even after that. So, and I like in there, you know, I like when, you know, Alex seems like he was the guy that kind of had a good sense for the business and the band, you know, and he, you know, he says, he goes, you know, by our third, fourth album, everybody thought we were rich and we were making good money, but we just kept investing it back into the band. They had cheap light shows, they had all this stuff, and everybody thinks we're all like just rolling in the dough, and we are, I guess, at some point, but, you know, a lot of it doesn't go in our pockets. It just feeds the machine, you know, to keep the beast on the road, you know. So, well,
like any other business that's out there, I mean, you're doing what it takes to make it one step more being self-sustainable, you know.
I remember on the So Far So Good So What tour, we were somewhere back in your neck of the woods, and I went outside the hotel, and we had a day off, and there was 2 tour buses and 2 trucks, you know, and we were all owners of the business. So it's not like we were, you know, we didn't know what was going on. It's not like, you know, somebody ran the business and we were paid musicians. We were all owners of Megadeth, you know. Right. And I remember seeing that, just kind of stopping for a minute and went, huh, wow, okay. Like, that was a big look, you know, to go from being in the car on the Killing Is My Business tour to the motorhome into the bus on P-Cells, and then a bus, you know, after that, I guess. And, you know, but you know, probably our headlining tour, you know, the crew had a bus, we had 2 trucks, all the sound and lights and all the gear. And, you know, I remember how much money we were making, because we were still doubling up, sharing hotel rooms, you know. And I don't know, I seem to remember always that, like, our guitar techs always seemed to make more money than we did. You know, on our weekly salaries that we paid ourselves.
Right.
And you know, because that's just what it is. You know, when you own the business, you get paid last, you know.
Or last.
Yeah, the crew, lights, sounds, managers, everybody else. You know, then there comes that point where I remember in the 90s going, wait a minute, how come our fucking manager made like 50% more than I did? That's fucked up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, because they commission the big deals off the top, or at least in that day. And yeah, it's kind of what it is with bands. Because, you know, like, they work on commission because the thing could go bust, and you spend a lot of years making no money, you know, and then finally it turns a corner. They deserve to be rewarded too. And of course, that's when bands usually fire managers, you know. So I always tell managers that it's like, just know you're only the manager until the next one. You will be fine. It's almost guaranteed.
You're only as good as your last tour. So.
Yeah, exactly. And the better you do and the more money they make, the more ungrateful the musicians are going to be, the more they think they deserve more, and somehow you're the bad guy and you're out. So, you know, take what you can when you get it, and then move on. You know, so.
Right.
But now you've got coffee.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's always been a little coffee in my cup, I guess, right? But, you know, that mostly started back in when I moved to LA, when Dijon Carruthers was our drummer, right, in Megadeth, back in summer of 83, when we were first starting the band. And we were smoking a lot of pot back then. So I was always, you know, you get sleepy, so you need something to pick you up. And this is before I could afford cocaine or any good stuff, you know. So and of course, you try not to do too much of that, because that's what a drug addict does. You don't want to be a drug addict, so I drank a lot of coffee.
Right.
When Dijon was like a big coffee connoisseur, or, you know, I guess he's connoisseur. We didn't have any money to be connoisseurs, but he had chock full of nuts, you know.
Right.
Like on the farm in Minnesota, we had Folgers, and I hated it. Like, drink this shit, you know. So I remember we were chock full of nuts. We were in California. This is awesome. This is like some tasty coffee. But so, you know, that was mostly my coffee thing. And, you know, then I guess when I got sobered up in the 90s, somehow I kept drinking coffee. You know, then I actually, because my taste buds were alive, I actually appreciated real nice coffee. There's a place on Ventura Boulevard where I'd always stop in and buy like this really nice hazelnut coffee, you know. So, you know, I don't know, I guess my taste buds kind of always went for that, in my adult years.
Nice.
Figure you were just in Albany. You were a stone's throw away from Saratoga, where the Death Wish folks hang out.
Oh, is that where they're at? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, it's when we started this whole thing, I don't know what, 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever it was, it was fun. It was exciting. It was a new thing. A lot of people were getting into beer and whiskey and all this kind of stuff. And, a lot of it was just, they were just kind of white labeling, putting their brands, their band names. I mean, Megadeth had a beer and all this stuff, just putting it over, for a brewery to do it. And look, there was a lot of money to be made in alcohol. There's not a lot of money to be made in coffee. It's, so I realized, I said, look, this is a lifestyle thing. It's, we have a T-shirt, a patch, a guitar pick, and we have a bag of coffee too. It's kind of, it's kind of a merchandising thing. But look, it sells well. People have made the connection that I'm a coffee guy, and so that's what we do. And then like your shirt says, the NAMM show's coming up next week, so we've got some new coffees we're rolling out next week, and
I'll be there.
So stay tuned for that. Yeah, we'll see you there, so you can come by and.
Yeah. In fact, now is Riot Stitch sharing the space with you, or just for that one event?
Riot Stitch is there. Yeah, so Riot Stitch, just for reference, so they make all Steel Panthers clothes.
Right. Sherry's been on her show.
Yep. Sherry's fantastic.
Oh.
I saw her last year at the Ronnie Montrose Remembered event at NAMM.
Mm-hmm.
And so her and singer Keith, they're together. So that was amazing. I was like, God, these guys have such fancy clothes. Like, where do these guys get all these clothes? And it's LA,
right.
So, and I remember, what's her name from the singer from Vixen was there. You'd expect her to have hot rock and roll clothes.
Lorraine.
I was like, where do these guys get these clothes? And it turns out it's from Sherry.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
And then when Accept came through town, again, KK, I was asking Philip, the guitar player, where do you guys get your clothes? Oh, Riot Stitches. I was like, that name just kept coming up all the time,
Right.
So it's she's cool, man. It's so it's great that she'll be there. Lisa Johnson, who has that great Rockstar Guitars book. She's put some of my guitars in her books as well. So yeah, it's going to be a cool alley, and it's going to be old school NAMM, man. We're going to have so old school rock and roll with rockers and.
That's
awesome.
Stuff
going on
I'm excited to stop by. I know that Sherry had sent me a thing. She says, when you're here, she's having that little catwalk thing that she's doing as well. So she's like, you've got to. And I said, if that's Saturday, I'm already flying out Saturday morning. She will.
The catwalk thing is cool because she wants to do kind of like a fashion show.
Right.
And she's got her clothes are they're hot rock and roll clothes.
Yes.
So Michael Starr from Steel Panther is going to walk the catwalk.
Yep.
Which is very, very, very Steel Panther.
Yes.
Yes.
And so that's cool. And which everybody should come by. That's Saturday, I believe. So that's the thing that's cool about that. I remember when Garth Samuelson was our drummer, he used to sneak me and Dave in the back door of NAMM because now everybody can get into NAMM somehow, even though it's closed to the public and it's a private show. Like, everybody can get in, right? Somehow, so you know somebody, right? But back in that day, in the '80s, it was really closed, and Gar would sneak us these passes and don't let anybody see you with these, or whatever you wear, but don't cause trouble and get thrown out. It was a real proper trade show, business show.
The funny thing is now, because I'm a ambassador and endorsed by Ultimate Ears, so
who we love, and we love them. I use them as well.
You can hear your own tears with Ultimate Ears. That's I've been trying to get that slogan passed, but Jeanette's not helping me.
She's not, no.
But last year, my badge said, endorsed artist. So the difference between that little red line at the bottom, and you're just walking through, and I don't think anything of the podcast and the, whatever. And people are like, so now the non-usual people that have been going stop whoever they see with that little red bar at the bottom, and like, who are you? I'm like, I'm a podcast guy. That's the main reason I'm here. But I'm a musician.
Just me.
Well, and it's funny, when I worked for PD, and of course they were one of the big dogs there.
Right.
They had a huge booth, and always were a big player in that. And then once you have the exhibitor badge, that's AAA all access, so it's nice to be an exhibitor again with Ellefson Coffee, because it gives you the full right title, privilege, and interest to the whole thing. But I remember when I first worked there, they had all these badges. We had 10 George Lynch badges and all these, and they're like, yeah, those are just kind of the, the extra badges we give to people to sneak them in the door, right? Right? There was 10 George Lynches and a few, there's just a few guys that, and then NAMM really cracked down on that. You had to show your ID to match your badge, and it was oh shit, we got to throw all that away, but so you can't really do that anymore. But yeah, back when, in the 80s, I remember, so Gar worked for BC Rich. Dean Guitars was just starting up, and Dean Zielinski, the owner, they were a very rock and roll company, and they had a catwalk with a bunch of, hot babes walking around. And I don't know that they had a stripper pole on the end, but it was just short of that. You know what I mean? It was basically a wet t-shirt contest out there. And of course, everybody'd go to that, it was cool, man. It was that was, again, the 80s, it was, Sunset Strip, Motley Crue, hair bands, hot chicks. It was the whole thing, and so we're trying to bring a little bit of that flavor back, and NAMM likes it. In fact, Glenn Sobel, from Alice Cooper's band, he came and signed at our booth last year, and he even said afterwards, he goes, dude, your booth was great, man. You guys, this is like old school NAMM, man.
It was.
Yeah, make some noise, cause some trouble, it's
there you go.
Again, you don't want to cause problems, get thrown out, but it's things have gone so corporate. And of course, coming back from COVID, everything was so kind of, very tepid and, and all this kind of stuff. And so we're very, very thankful they let us come back. As far as I know, I'm the only artist there, that's exhibiting as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, I'd love to have Gene Simmons there and get Zach Wilde there, and guys who also have guitar brands and stuff, and open it up, and kind of one step from Comic-Con. You know what I mean? I think that'd be cool.
Yeah. No, I think that would actually, if you're going to invite the public, that has been the reason that you guys sell what you sell. Right. You might as well give them a little extra,
Yeah, so that's kind of the fun of it. I mean, to me, I always like to bring my friends along. So it's that's what I'm kind of hoping, is that, it's attractive. It's like, oh, that's kind of a cool idea. You don't have to sort of be the stiff corporate thing there. You can bring kind of a flavor to it. It's, it's rock and roll. That's what makes it fun. And keeps it interesting.
Well, we kept saying to Joey Allen, I said,
oh yeah.
I was like, are you going to be there as you? Or are you going to be there as the Pearl guy? He says, I have meetings every day, and I will see no one.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Well, it's come back a little bit different. They're trying to, kind of just figure it all out, and, NAMM's big, one of their big things really is music education. That's kind of their impetus, really. And now they're very connected in with the Grammys. Right. So being a Grammy member, it's nice to, have everybody that sort of plays into that. And you get a lot of emails from both NAMM and the Grammy presidents. Everybody's doing what they can, raising money and setting up relief funds for the fire, for the fire.
Yeah, because the Grammys are the week after, right?
What's that?
The Grammys are the week after.
Exactly. On February 2nd.
And then the concert.
I always kind of do them back to back, and
then the concert for the fundraiser is the day before. I think the Grammys is whatever, Music Cares or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of stuff going on, around. I remember when Music Cares, when they were forming that. It was actually back when I was in rehab. I mean, like 88, 89. All those guys they were just starting. Because, that was the thing. It's like the jig was up. It's like, all right, my punk rock parade has come to an end. Everybody's got to get off heroin. It's time to get clean, and that's just what it was back in that day. And not that I ever even planned on being on heroin, but it's what it was. And especially in LA, music business. I mean, when I moved to LA, cocaine was on the cover of Time magazine. I mean, that's how big it had gotten, So cocaine was now the headliner,
Yeah.
So, yeah. But and that's just what it was in that era, in Hollywood and everything like that. But yeah, then they sort of put Music Cares together because there was, guys were dying, and they're just like, hey, look, there's still a lot of money to be made in rock and roll. and in the music business, and we need people to, we don't want people dying. We want people living. And,
right.
And look, the fact is we all made our best music once we got cleaned up. And Aerosmith were kind of the poster boys for it. The Impossible band got sober somehow.
Yeah,
and
right.
Our manager actually mentored under their manager, Tim Collins, to get us cleaned up and get us back on the road for Rust in Peace. And just like Aerosmith, then they made a couple of huge records off of that, and then we did Rust in Peace. Really, all the '90s, the stuff in the '90s were the sober records. And,
right. The Metallica went sober.
What's that?
I said the guys from Metallica went sober.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, at some point, if it doesn't kill you,
that's right.
And not everybody's an out of control rager, you know what I mean? But for those that are, and those of us that are, I put me in that bucket too. It's like when that happens, then it's like, it's time to tighten it up, you know what I mean? And get, because we've all been to shows, and I remember going to see Humble Pie years ago. It was the Rock and Roll Marathon, and it came through Minneapolis, and me and my friends went because Angel was on the bill, Angel and Frank Marino. Yeah. So Frank Marino headlined, Humble Pie, then Angel, and then Mother's Finest was supposed to be on the bill, but they were replaced by someone else for this band called Missouri or something. I assume we're from Missouri, but Angel were Punky Meadows just drinking beers and playing slide guitar with his beer bottle, and it was just kind of like it was a little like we don't give a fuck, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And which as a young aspiring musician, for me was a little disappointing. They were great. I liked them. I was such a fan. But then Humble Pie came on, and I didn't know much about Humble Pie. And Steve Marriott was kind of a mess. It seemed like, I don't know. I didn't know him then. But and then Frank Marino came on and just played for hours. And that was the first time I ever fell asleep at a concert.
Okay.
I love Frank Marino. I loved his records.
Right.
Me and Marty actually went to go see him, I think at the Strand. Is that in San Juan Capistrano or something in California? We went to go see him years later.
Right.
When we were, in the 90s. And, we were like total fanboys going to see Frank Marino play. It was cool. We didn't fall asleep, but that was good.
Did you grow up in a musical household, Dave?
Not really. My dad didn't have a musical ear. My brother played trombone for a minute, didn't care about it, Mm-hmm. My mom was the musical one. She was the one who had, piano skills and sang in the church choir and stuff. But she had cool records. She was a big Elvis fan, had a lot of Elvis mm-hmm. records, Beatles records, some Motown records. So that was my first introduction to any of that with a record player in the house. Mm-hmm. Was that. But, my education, and that was cool. And of course, I've come to appreciate that more now in my, adult musical years. But, for me, the stuff I heard on the radio, because any good rock and roll, if your parents don't hate it, you're just not listening to the right stuff.
That's right. Exactly.
So,
that's right.
When people would say I got thrown out of school and they made me go home because I was wearing your Megadeth shirt, it's like, awesome.
Cool. You're welcome.
That's what it's supposed to be.
That's why my parents would never walk in my room.
If you're wearing, a Slipknot t-shirt or something.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
That's why
send little Johnny home and change your t-shirt.
Yeah.
So that's what great rock and roll is, So, but I lived in a very rural area, right? So it was the AM radio stations, WLS AM out of Chicago, that had Styx and, Ballroom Blitz by Sweet. Sweet in a lot of ways was really, that was a game changer, man. Because when I heard Ballroom Blitz, I'm like, what is that?
Right.
Yeah.
Are you ready, Steve? Uh-huh. And then when that first scream comes in, I'm like, fuck yeah, man. Like, this doesn't sound like anything around our house.
Right.
It was just next level. And then, I hear Bachman Turner Overdrive and then Kiss. And then I see Kiss, for guys my age, that Paul Lynde Halloween special in Halloween 1976. And that was when Kiss had just put Destroyer out.
Yeah.
John Cloud was on the radio, and I was just like, dude, what is this? This is insane. So I still go back and watch that Halloween special. And even then I could tell they were lip syncing. They were just playing along, but still it was rad,
Yeah.
And I just started playing bass, and And I think that year in the summer of '76 is when I started playing bass. So I was just fucking all in, and that's how my life is today. I'm still all in. Somebody sends me a video, somebody sends me this, we work on a song. So I've tried not to change since the summer of '76.
So Dave, you had no interest in any other instrument but the bass, or did you play something else first?
I have a piano here that I play, and really. It's funny, I was telling some guys the other day, some of my favorite songs are the songs no one will ever hear because it's just me alone with the piano in the house, right. Just sitting here playing, right? I love it. It's, I'm marginally okay,
right.
Enough I can write and do stuff, I took up tenor saxophone, and it was mostly just because it's like, okay, you're in 5th grade, you got to do something. What are you going to do? I was going to be a jock. I wasn't a nerd, like a bookworm kind of guy. Mm-hmm. It's like, all right, music, yeah, sure. And I just looked and go, I don't really like any of this, but the saxophone looks kind of cool. All right, let me try that one,
Yeah.
And, that was probably and it's funny, the sax is probably, out of all the orchestra instruments, the sax is probably the one that is probably parlayed into rock and roll more than any other instrument, like Baker Street,
yes.
From, that, and, even Glenn Fry, so, and I guess, look, Chicago, the band Chicago was on the radio when I was growing up, and they had horns and stuff, which, to me was, I've watched these documentaries about all these guys and how much pride they had in being a horn band, and then when David Foster was brought in, from Clive Davis to going like, this band needs a hit. Like, it's time for these guys to make, they were transitioning out of the '70s into the '80s, MTV, and so Foster comes in, and Peter Cetera wasn't really the lead singer of the band, and he looks at him and goes, "You're the singer. This is what we're doing," and he basically rips it all apart and retools the whole band. And of course, then they went on to have this incredible success, but. The horn guys are like, "What the fuck? We're like a horn band. What about us?" It's like, "Yeah, well, not anymore. You're not." You know what I mean? MTV, we're like a horn band. And I've been through that process. The Megadeth Risk album was that. It was like this reinventing of the band, and it was like, I mean, really, I guess most of our records in the '90s, to some degree, were that. Like going, okay, like we're here, we're at the front door, they're opening the door, letting us in the room. It's time to step up our game. Our manager Ron was a big Pat Riley, the coach of the Lakers, was a big Lakers fan. So he studied Pat Riley, and he really kind of applied how to use those techniques to work with us, with the band, going, okay, we've got varying, everybody's great. There's egos, of course. And how do we get everybody working together, yet staying in their lane, doing the right, doing their job, and letting everyone else do their job, and not getting jealous of each other. And, so he was really good at fielding that, from, kind of late '89 when we did the No More Mr. Nice Guy video.
Yes.
Up through Euthanasia. Those are critical years, and you're spending a lot of time together in very compressed environment, a lot of pressure. Yeah. Pressure to perform, pressure to make everything just be the best, and it's not like someone's handing you the script. You're making it up as you go together. With the managers, the agents. It really is a team. That's why, no one, anyone comes along and says I did it, it was all me. It's like, I don't know what room you were in, but it wasn't the one we were all in. You know what I mean? So, So
I think one of my favorite Megadeth albums was actually Cryptic Writings.
Dude, I love that record. It's got some of my favorite bass tone on it. And that was a fun period. There was a new sobriety in the band. And we were going to Nashville to work with Dan Huff. So it was exciting. We had cool songs. We had our manager, we had a new manager, and we had taken meetings with a few managers before that. And, some of them were like, "Oh, just make an album, come to Europe and tour." And we're like, all right, well, we're an American band.
Right.
There's more. Our world started in America. And if it stayed successful with our American fans, it would parlay out to the world.
Right.
Asia and South America and everything else. Right. So we didn't go with that guy. And then, Mike Renault and his partner Bud Prager. So Mike was managing Corrosion of Conformity, who were out with us on the Euthanasia tour, and Dave really liked him. And it's funny with Mike because he was a front of house sound man and tour manager for Journey back in their biggest days. Like,
oh wow,
they were on fire with Steve Perry at the top back in the day. So, but I tell you what, he came in and he was one of the first managers who really balanced the budget. You know what I mean? He came in and, you can get into this cycle where you take these big advances and stuff and, and that's all great. But, then you realize after you take all this money from everybody, from your merchandise and, the record company and all this stuff, all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, we are in a lot of debt and now we have to be on the road.
Right.
Yeah. Meanwhile, your manager's at home having commissioned the money, getting to go to sleep every night.
Right.
And that was a real wake-up call, like, wow, yeah, this kind of sucks, and if anything goes wrong or we have a health problem or something happens, like, we're fucked,
Right.
So so Mike Renault on Cryptic Writings, he really, we had to really rebuild a lot of stuff, because every couple of years everything changes. Who would have seen Nirvana coming? That just dropped out of nowhere. And next thing you know, that was the new voice for the new generation and a new sound, and of course for thrash and probably us and Metallica and Anthrax a bit as well. We were trying to figure out how to navigate the 90s, and we did, but. It was Cryptic Writings was a fun record, and you can hear it. There's good spirit to it.
Yeah.
The song titles and the content of the lyrics was cool. Yeah. And it still kicked ass. It was still a ripping, shredding record.
You guys always kept to your brand though, in a sense where, you mentioned Anthrax and Joey is from here.
From here.
He's from Oswego and
Right.
I grew up, we've all grown up knowing, and Jesus. And then when I owned a bar here locally, and then Joey had his little, I don't want to say little, but Joey had his little local band that he would do in between shows. And you guys all, you pioneered your sound. Everybody was coming out with the spandex and you guys came out back in the Saxton Anvil kind of denim leather.
Yeah.
This is us. Go fuck yourself and all your
Well, it's so
hairspray.
funny that we were all such big Kiss fans because everything we did was nothing like Kiss at all.
Right.
Which is really funny, moving to LA and realizing, okay, we are the complete opposite of that. It's like, this is the antithesis. This is more Ramones,
I was just going to say you were the later, heavier version of what the Ramones kind of.
Of course, Motorhead, they also set the bar of that, coming over from England. But it's and the Bay Area, I think, kept us honest, to be honest with you. The Bay Area, those fans, that community, Bailoff from Exodus, man, he was the first, let's go kill a poser. So I think they kept a lot of the integrity of our thrash metal scene, because there's no way you could play to that audience, then go out on the road and come home and really be much different than you were when you left. Like they made sure you stayed true to who you said you were, and so I give that scene a lot of credit up there.
I think the only band that kind of completely changed, I like the band, and we've mentioned it before, but Metallica kind of I don't want to say they sold out because but the grit was gone.
Fucking arenas is what they did.
Yeah, sold out arenas, exactly. But the grittiness was very polished.
Look, the thing is, you can't. You can just be the same cut and paste that you always were, and some bands did that. When it's ironic. I compare our brothers in Slayer, right? Because they finished strong. Obviously, they really finished strong. Yeah. But in the '90s, they did not roll with the punches at all, and they were back in the theaters, and their business, shrunk as a result. Whereas we played the game, Metallica played the game. We kept pushing the envelope to develop our sound. and things got much bigger for us, you
Right.
know. But then it's weird. Then in the 2000s, when the Lamb of Gods and these guys were coming out, and, you know, hailing Pantera and Slayer and really Megadeth, Metallica, and all this stuff. You know, it's funny. Slayer ended up having this big uprising in their later years. You know, and they really did finish super strong.
Right.
You know, and you know, and you know, and when you say, hey, this is it, you get no more, of course that creates a vacuum. You know, people, that really creates an interest, you know, for that, you know. And I got to say, you know, Carrie's album, I'm really proud of him. You know, he gave his Slayer fans exactly what they want. You know, he put the right band together. You know, Marcos Segeda, we've done stuff together with Metal Allegiance, and he really turned the juice up. You know, and I just listened to it and I go, okay. You know, whereas I'd made records while I was in Megadeth, I made records when I wasn't in Megadeth. You know, Carrie being, you know, like a David Ellefson of Slayer of sorts, right? An OG, and him and Hanneman and Tom and everything. You know, Carrie really played that hand well after Slayer, because you can't get any more Slayer. I mean,
no, you're right.
That's what was stated, right? There is no more. It's done. And for Carrie to then sort of go, what would the next Slayer record sound like? It would sound like this, my solo record, you know? So I thought, you know, the writing was fresh, and obviously he's working with new musicians now, you know, past Slayer. So he's got some liberty to create a new path. So, you know, I was very impressed with how he did that. You know? And, you know, look, Slash made a lot of records, both in and out of Guns N' Roses, and a lot of, you know, Snake Pit and various things. And once he tapped in with Miles, man, it's just on
what
fire,
a great,
you know, and it's great.
Yeah,
and it's
great.
That luck doesn't always fall our way, you know. No matter how great you write, no matter how great you play, no matter how famous the band is that you're in, or you were, you know, a part of, you know, that to have that kind of second chance doesn't always happen. So I'm happy for my friends when it lands their way.
We have to give a shout out to Pete Merluzzi, since Slash's name's been mentioned, because Pete has been working with Slash for years now, and so Pete keeps telling us, I'll get him on your show. So Pete, I know you watch every episode. Yeah. There's another cue. Can you please do your job? We have your album hanging up over here.
Well, you know, the truth of it is Slash is really, he's kind of one of the last great guitar heroes, you know, that has the whole package. You know, he's got the look, he's got the charisma, he's got the chops, he can still write, he can still play. Right. You know, and you know, you know, I had some good experiences with him back coming off of So Far So Good So What. He was coming off of Appetite for Destruction. We were all home in LA together, and we got to hang out and jam for a few months and make some music and play and write a little bit. And, you know, just really got to appreciate his musical depth and just how wide he is, you know, to be a fan of thrash and really understand it, to being, you know, kind of the really gutsy bluesy guitar player that he is, that's kind of his sweet spot of his playing. Yeah. But, you know, but still a student of the guitar, you know, because that can happen when you're doing our line of work, where you're, you know, you're just in the machine, that, you know, to just still have the passion for playing and wanting to learn new things. And of course his success was so big, he got invited to play with a lot of different people. In a lot, you know, everybody from, you know, Billy Gibbons to Michael Jackson to, you know, the creme de la creme. But you know, accepted it graciously and was just still one of us, you know. I mean, I think that's the cool thing about Slash, is he reminds you that he's still just one of us, you know. And that's always an admirable quality, because, you know, no one likes the guy that went off and just then became somebody else, you know what I mean? Right. They forgot where they came from, you know. So, you know, and I guess rock and roll is good. And Zakk Wylde is the same thing, you know. I mean, Zakk is that guy
Oh,
he comes right off a Pantera tour. Next thing he's out doing Zach Sabbath, and then he's off doing this, and he's doing that, and and every time I see Zach, he's got a guitar in his hand, he's practicing, he's always playing, he's perfecting his craft, and like Zach Sabbath thing is cool because you can't get any more Sabbath, and he, kind of assumed an heir to the throne,
Sure, right,
and the fact that he can kind of sing like Ozzy's.
Yes, exactly right.
I think that's as impressive as anything. I'm like, that's freaking awesome, man.
Yep.
Right.
You can sing like your boss.
Exactly right.
And your boss lets you do it. They're not even mad at you.
Right.
David, there was you bring up the 90s a lot, and that's I wanted to ask you one thing about it, and that was the tour that I saw here in Weedsport. And I feel very fortunate enough to have seen them, was the original lineup of Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
How did you guys get those guys on board with that? Because it was you.
So different.
It was you, Slayer, and Anthrax.
Okay, so here's the thing. So we were touring Europe. We did with the Rest of Peace tour. We did a little warm up dates in summer of '90. We went to Europe and did Clash of the Titans, and that bill was Slayer, Megadeth co-headlining. Slayer always played last. Slayer, Megadeth, Testament, Suicidal Tendencies. Right. Okay. And that was when Suicidal was kind of more of a metal band, right? When they were kind of making those more metal records. Then we came back here to North America and we did the whole Judas Priest Painkiller tour across North America. And then that took us up to Christmas. And then in January, we went back out with Judas Priest, kind of up in your neck of the woods, the Poughkeepsies, and I remember it was cold as hell. It's like, oh my god! And you know why? Because I had to pack a suitcase because we leave LA. You pack your warmest clothes that nobody owns in LA to go tour by where you guys are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then in the suitcase, we had to have our clothes to go directly down to Rock in Rio, right? Which we were going to play.
Oh my god!
So we did that whole run, and then. We did Asia. We did New Zealand, Australia. I remember because the first time I ever bungee jumped was in New Zealand.
Oh, there you go.
Right. So we did New Zealand, Australia, Japan. Went to Hawaii. Dave got married there, and then we went right from Hawaii right straight over to Europe and started a tour. And our agent quite often we would have the Almighty. That band, The Almighty, with Ricky Warwick.
Yes.
Also was in Thin Lizzy.
Thin Lizzy, yep.
They were on the bill with us a lot during that time. And then there was this little opening band called Alice in Chains. And, admittedly, we didn't pay that much attention to them. They were on the bill. And as often would happen, the band would be on the bill for a couple of weeks, a few weeks or something, a short leg. Well, these guys were out there for a while, and I look at the posters, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe we should have paid more attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because and then at one point I remember it was the Volkshaus in Zurich, Switzerland, and me and Marty. We're laughing at the name. We're going, what a funny name, Alice in Chains, right? And then we saw one of we kept seeing one of their T-shirts, and on the back of it, it was like a guy. It was a drawing of a guy peeing, and it was called "You're a Peeing on My Head" tour, right? Is what it was, the Alice in Chains "You're a Peeing on My Head" tour, and I was like, okay, these guys got a sense of humor, so we're like, we should probably go check these guys out. So we hear them, they start playing, we go upstairs, dressing room's downstairs, so we went upstairs, and we were like, holy hell, these guys are fucking amazing. I mean, they literally look like lumberjacks, They had the flannels, they had the beards, they were truly that thing. And they're a grungy, and I don't mean grunge, but they were just a grungy, just a scruffy
bunch of misfits.
Yeah.
But fucking good. I mean, we were blown away, and we immediately called our manager Ron and said, that's the band we want on Clash of the Titans coming up in the summer. And Scott Ian knew of them, liked them. Scott's always pretty ahead of the curve and hip to stuff, so he was on board. Tom and Slayer got on board, and so it was pretty quick, because we didn't have the opener. We were kicking around, who should it be?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was perfect. I mean, I don't know if they would think it's perfect, because that was a tough gig for them to play a bunch of thrash bands, and thrash fans don't take too kindly to anything that's not thrash.
Correct.
But we wanted to give them our stage and the chance to break, because we loved them. We thought they were cool guys. Their music's great. We were all fans of theirs. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, after that tour, they went on tour with Van Halen, and goodbye. The rest is history.
Yeah.
So that was largely just we just loved them, and we just thought they were just so fucking cool. And so that's the story of that.
That's cool, man. Look, I feel fortunate enough to have seen them, the original lineup at least,
right
at that time.
Right.
Well, I remember they showed up. We started at it was the Starplex Amphitheater in Dallas, Texas, where we started the tour. And Lane shows up, and he's got the kind of white hair. He's all high and tight. Looked great. I was like, dude, you look amazing. And he goes, yeah, I just got out of rehab. Rehab for what? Heroin. I was like, you weren't on heroin when we were in Europe, Right. And again, we weren't that tight with them. We didn't know them that well. Mike Starr, I probably knew the best, and was fucking funny, man. God, he was just a gypsy, And and then the irony, I would see him years later when he got off of that show, Celebrity Rehab.
Yeah.
That was when I was working the PV. I was at the NAMM show. He came by the PV booth, and I was like, oh my God, Mike, I haven't seen you in 20 years or whatever. And he said, yeah, I'm going to go up to Utah, and I'm going to put a new band together. And I remember saying to him, I go, I don't know, dude. You think that's such a good idea?
Right.
I'm a sober guy. Rock bands aren't always the healthiest places for guys like us. They said, are you sure? Oh, no, it'll be great. And a couple months later, he died, So I was like, oh, fuck. It's just sad. I really liked him. He was a fun guy. He was funny. He just had a fun rock and roll spirit, So.
Yeah, I just remember the end of that show, Lane Staley wanting to fight some dude off stage.
Really?
Can't blame them. They probably weren't very nice to him, right? Because they got pelted with trash. They took off, and we would stand out on stage, like on the side of the stage, kind of like, don't fuck with our boys,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we brought them out here. They are our guests. You're in our house. Treat our guests nicely.
Yes.
But to the credit of the bands that were there, mm-hmm. I don't think Slayer fans were Slayer fans. They were a breed of their own. I mean, Mary Jo was managing. I think Mary Jo Spillane was managing that tour, actually.
She might have been, yeah.
And she's a very, very good friend of the shows and a very close person.
I love Mary Jo. She's great.
She's in fact, I talked to her this afternoon. We talked. She's doing some stuff.
Hello.
I'm going to. I keep trying to get her to go to NAMM, but she's going to be at the Grammys the week after. So I was like, damn it. So, but she was saying, like, the fan base. Yeah. If something throws it off a bit, they're like climbing the walls. I mean, you had to have barriers so high that they're just going to.
Slayer fans are, they are a unique breed, and I appreciate it. I watching Slayer do what they do. They did not try to be everything to everybody.
Right.
They were perfectly fine kind of being this one trick pony because it was a fucking good trick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what they did. And, they brought the fury, of course, So, whereas, you talked about Anthrax earlier and, they had to make their adaptations, if you will. And, I honestly, I love those couple of records they made with John Bush. I mean, John is a singer that when he's in the room, that room changes for the better.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy is a phenomenal voice, whether it's with Armored Saint, Category 7,
mm-hmm.
he sings with us with Metal Allegiance, and I mean, I feel it being on stage with the guy. Him, and I've jammed with Corey Taylor a couple of times. Same thing. We did this Geezer Lifetime Achievement thing some years back. He joined us with Metal Allegiance when Lemmy had died.
Yeah.
We were basically kind of the house band at the Whiskey that night when they had the wake or the funeral and everything. And you know, he's another one of those guys. I mean, he gets on stage and he's very musical. He's got great musical history. In fact, you know, it's funny. We jammed for the Eddie Trunk 40th anniversary last year in December. Brad Gillis shows up, and he wasn't, as I know, I don't think was not on the schedule. And he goes, "Hey, I want to play with you," you know. And I love Brad, man. Brad was, you know, I love the guy. And we played at a Ronnie Montrose gig some years back at NAMM. Ironically, Jeff Young was on stage. I look over I'm like, "Is that Jeff Young over there?" It's like, I haven't seen Jeff in 30 years, and you know, sure enough, it was Jeff. You know, so it's funny how these things connect.
We had him on.
You know?
We haven't seen him in a couple of months.
Yeah, we had him on our show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Yeah, nice. So it's just funny, you know. Again, you go to NAMM, and this is what happens at NAMM. It's just you run into people that look. That's where our tribe, you know, it's the Camp David of musicians. You know what I
there
mean?
you go.
That's where we hang out.
It's
But yeah, no, Brad shows up at the Eddie Trunk thing, and all of a sudden we're like, "Fuck, dude, whatever you want to play," you know. So we played Crazy Train and Don't Tell You You Love Me, and initially Robert Mason ended up singing it for the show, but at soundcheck, Corey was there, right? And we're sitting there jamming through it at soundcheck, and Corey's like, "Fuck, can you believe we're playing with Brad Gillis?" You know, it was just, you know, and again, just it's fanboy moments, right? Where
right.
Everybody's a fan of someone else. Next thing you know, you're on stage jamming with, you know, with whoever, you know, one of your idols, and you're like, "I don't even know how this happened, but here we are." This is freaking awesome.
Now that was at Vamp, right?
No, that was at House of Blues.
Oh, okay. I could have sworn, didn't they do something at Vamp in Vegas?
There might have been something. There might have been something at Vamp, but Eddie's thing was over at
Yeah,
House
it
of
was.
Blues.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think maybe Tyson Leslie was from Vixen.
Yeah, the
He
keyboard
got up
player.
the keyboard player
Right.
from Vixen.
Yeah, I know Tyson. I use Tyson. Yeah, Tyson.
What another great guy.
great guy.
Hardest
Oh my
working
God,
guy in the
great.
world.
In fact, he played on that. He was on that show.
Yeah.
I just saw the footage last week, actually, and I was like, "God, that's right." Fucking, it was Glenn Sobel and Brad and me and Robert Mason, and then and Tyson was back there. I was like,
Yeah.
"No wonder it sounds so good because he's a great
right.
singer. He's
Oh,
a great keyboard
he's
player.
everything.
I hired Tyson to do all my keyboard stuff on my record.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and
Yeah.
again another guy
that's been
that
here.
we've had him on the show, and
Yeah.
and I, when they were playing north of Poughkeepsie with Vixen, I went out and we went to dinner together and stuff. And Tyson was just, I'm like, "Dude, you're like one of the hardest working. If they had 10 days a week, you'd find it." He goes, "I have." Well, he even said it on our show.
Yeah.
So he goes, "I have enough ex-wives and stuff. I have
have to keep
bills.
working."
I have to work 10 days a week, you know."
I have to keep working.
But
I'm actually waiting for him to send me a couple of tracks right now, so I'm glad you reminded me. I need to text him after the show.
That's
where's
cool.
those track stuff, buddy?
he's got that. He does a birthday jam for himself, kind of like
Yeah.
mirrors it.
Yeah, I went down and did it. Yeah, it was great. It was back in September or August or September or something.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I see guys like that, and the projects that you do, even as well, I mean, you know, the Elliott Waits for No One, you know, hanging out with guys like that, the stuff for Kathy, Repkin there, and I mean, it's just.
Yeah,
It
I got
show-
another one coming out later this week, I think. So, you know, here's the thing. I really enjoy playing the music I want to play with the people I want to play it with. You know?
Right.
And, you know, sometimes you get paid, sometimes you don't. You know, like the Eddie Van Halen thing. I don't even think he got paid to play on Thriller. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and you know, sometimes it's, but like, who wouldn't want to play with Michael Jackson? For crying out loud. I mean, just he was so popular. Plus, you know, you got Quincy Jones. You've got just the best people in the business around there. And you get even invited into that room, especially the world we come from, a bunch of rock and rollers, you know, I mean, that's like the gold standard of everything.
Yeah.
So sometimes you get invited into those situations and it's like, of course you go. Even going to Albany, you know, like Bittner. You know, me and Jason, you know, we used to go around and do those clinics for Daddy's Chunky Music back there.
Oh my God.
And we would always play Hook and Mouth, which is like Bitt's favorite song. And that's why he insisted on playing it. And we played AK, he flew AK out from Flotsam, and so he sang on it. And, you know, these songs are not as easy to play as you think, you know. And even if you rehearse them, once you're in the room playing them together, it's a whole different thing, right? Because I can sit here and practice all day long, but then you turn the stereo off and you go get on stage and play it with guys, and you know, where's your cue? Is it a drum fill? Is it a riff?
Right.
You know, so, and the singers have it the worst because once they're singing, everybody's paying attention to them, so they can't mess up.
Right.
Know, so.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yep.
You know, it's funny because when you play with somebody like Jason has his style. So if you jive as a bass player and a drummer, you're going to find each other. You're going to find that pocket, that comfortable pocket. I mean, I was a drummer for 30 years before I became a singer, and it was like if you have a bass player you're good working with,
right,
you're in. Now, if it's somebody that you just don't jive well with, it's like, oh, this is gonna be
work.
a fucking train wreck.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how famous they are or what gigs they've had. It's like either you vibe with them or not. And personality-wise too, it's like, can you hang out together? You know what I mean? or is it, you know, just a drag being around each other?
Right,
you know?
right.
So, you know, that's another big part of it. But yeah, just musically, do you sort of do you make each other better? You know, does it sound better because you're playing, or
right.
is it harder work? You know, I've you know, we've all played with certain musicians, and you're just kind of like, you just come from such vast different backgrounds that you know, you're just trying to find the common ground there. You know, but you're right, drummers especially. I mean, I had a friend of mine say years ago, we were listening to REM. And he said, he goes, you know, drummers like this guy. It's the guy that had the
brain tumor. Yeah.
Essentially, REM kind of ended after that. That's how important he was to the thing, right? And it was like, you know, a drummer like that is so good that you don't even know that he's playing. It's like you're not even paying attention to him because that's how good he is. He's just driving the machine, and because everybody wants, you know, the flash, and you know that's what rock and roll is, right? Dazzle us.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's the one who is really just laying it down and makes it feel so comfortable that you're they're not the star of the show, but that's why. Because you know what I mean? They make everybody else better around them, and drummers and bass players, you know. You know, I've had to work with some drummers that it was like, ugh, yikes. Okay, someone's got to be driving through this and keeping real time and playing, you know. And friend of mine, while we were playing, he played guitar in Whitesnake. He was we did a Whitesnake Megadeth Queensrÿche tour in South America, and he was the guitar player in Mr. Mister. That was kind of but he then went on to work the LA session scene and played on a ton of records. And one day he told me he was on a session with Lee Sklar, the bass player, and he said they were getting the mix together to cut a track and pull the drums up. And he's like, oh my God, this is drummers all over. This is a mess, you know what I mean? And then he said, he goes, I pushed up the fader for Lee Sklar, and it all is like, you know what I mean? It just came together.
Yeah.
And he goes, that's why Lee Sklar gets called to work every day at the studios, because he pulls it together. And then I started having a lot of those own experiences myself. I was working with some younger artists that were, you know, trying to develop and produce some things. And all of a sudden I realized my experience was so clear on the session, because of all the records I'd made and the producers that I'd worked with, who all made me a much better bass player and a much better musician, how to be a better, you know, work better in the studio, that it was clear my experience just elevated the whole session to another level and really pulled it together. And that was probably one of my more proud moments. And it probably wasn't even a famous record. There's one I'm thinking of in particular that I don't want to say, but you know, it wasn't even a well-known record, but it's in my discography, and it was, you know, people, oh, what was your, you know, favorite moment or best moments, and winning a Grammy, of course, it's great, but it's musically satisfying when you know that, you know, you did something in the session that really, made it sound better. Probably another one would be, I remember when we were writing the Risk record, we went to Nashville. We didn't have enough songs because there was so much pressure from Bud Prager to write these, radio hits that did not come natural to us. That was not a natural thing. A Peace Sells, a Symphony, Sweating Bullets, Trust. We would write these things because they just organically fell into our lap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They kind of fall out of the sky through your guitar into the room, and there's the song. But to go in and kind of consciously try to craft a song that's not inside of you, that's not sort of in your airwaves, so to speak, it's just very unnatural, and it's hard. You know what I mean? And they don't. I just don't think that's always the best way to try to write a song, but. We were sitting there and we were working on the song that became Seven. And I remember I offered up some idea for something, and it turned the corner. It was, I don't know, maybe it was the bridge or something, but it connected the pieces. And I remember Dan Huff saying, he goes, "Dang, Dave, good job, man. You earned your keep on the session today." It was nice to be validated and appreciated, for that kind of stuff, that sometimes it's, you don't have to be the guy always offering the ideas, but when you do, it's something that mattered, and it made the song work, and it made it to the final on the record, and
it shows.
Yes,
I think the one thing that you mentioned, Bittner, Overkill had the same theory of we everybody collaborated, everybody's an equal, we all we stay in our own lanes, and when there's a drum piece, that's his, that's this. There's no one that's going to pull up in a Rolls Royce and you pull up in a Hyundai. Because the contract fucked everybody but the head, the frontline guy.
Yeah.
Well, and bands usually start that way. They don't always end that way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Where it's like that. Trust me, I know.
Right. Right.
But that's an internal thing that happens sometimes. But And it's funny, not every band works as a democracy. There's just some situations where, there always has to be a leader, right? And being the leader is not always, it's not a popularity contest, that's for sure. And you're not always the most popular guy in the room either, because you're having to, to lay down the law and make some decisions on stuff. And that's really what separates the men from the boys as far as, sort of the hobbyist weekend warrior players versus those who are in it for professional.
Yeah.
It's just like a chef. It's like, hey, we want the hamburger medium well. Well, I make my medium. I don't care. Here we make a medium well. Make a medium well. Fire another chef to do it. So it's the same thing. It's like, hey, here, this is what we do. This is how we do it. We need you to dress like this, play like this, and like I always say, don't bring the 6-string fretless to the punk rock gig, and don't bring your P bass with Black Flag stickers on it to to the wedding band gig.
Right.
Read the room.
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah. Look what's going on.
It's like that video of the drummer that's doing all this, and he's in the wedding band, and he's
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Like, dude, read the room, dude.
Read the room, pal.
Read the room, man.
Yeah.
That's funny. So, we say read the room, and we talk about funny moments. What's one of the some little show blooper, blunder, something that you can bring to the table? A little funny story. We've told you some of the samples we've had out there, but
there's a couple. I remember. Okay, so go back to Painkiller, Rust in Peace tour, right? Mm-hmm. And I might have told the story too before. There's a couple of them. One, it was Halloween in Vancouver, and the way we would come out, Nick would come out first, stand up on the kit, very attitude. Then Marty would come out, then I would come out, then Dave would come out. And when I came out, in Judas Priest, they had like these little ego ramps, like over for KK, and then one over on my side, because at that time I was on stage left, so over there for Glenn, right? And so I went out on Glenn's ego ramp, bright spotlight in my face. I come out, kind of do the big, victory, thing, and somebody threw a shoe at me. Now, this was the day I couldn't figure this out. Fans probably because most of them are right-handed, they would always take their left shoe off and they would throw it. And sometimes at the end of the show, you go, dude, there's like a mall's worth of left shoes out here in the audience, right? And it happened a lot on that tour, and I think Clash of the Titans. I remember it clearly. And they're all left shoes. You're like, so it must be people are right-handed. So I don't know if they're like, fuck yeah, dude, you're my hero. Wham, I got to throw my shoe at you. I don't know where this came from.
Oh, my God.
But this shoe hits me right in the solar plexus and knocks the wind out of me. I mean, I am down. I'm like, ugh. I couldn't breathe. And I'm like, ugh. And, you know, first rule of showbiz, you got to look cool. Don't ever let them see you sweat.
That's
right.
So I go off to the side of the stage to my guitar tech, Tony, who worked for me and Dave because we had our stuff stage left. And he's asking me, you okay? And I couldn't talk. I'm like, right? And we're about ready to rip into probably Holy Works, right? And I literally couldn't breathe. I couldn't talk. I'm like, I got to come in and play. So I'm literally starting Holy Wars. I can't breathe. I'm running out of breath. I'm ready to fucking pass out and fall over. And, you know, just chaos, right? Everything's ripping. Right? And we're just shredding into this song. Well, I'm trying to like bend over, headbang, so it looks like I'm doing my part. Meanwhile, I'm going, I'm trying to grab my breath. And, you know, I guess I pulled it off because no one seemed to notice. Even
That's awesome, though.
Right? So that was one. The second one was right around that same time on that tour. I made the mistake of going out on stage with some gum in my mouth. And I don't chew gum on stage. So I got some gum, chewing, and, you know, hair's flying everywhere. You know, sometimes hair will get stuck in your mouth like this, you know, when you're
right.
Banging, right? And so I'm rocking, and I go, fuck this gum, I want to spit it out. So I spit it out, but there's hair in my mouth, so it goes, boom, and it gets stuck right here. And I'm like, fuck, you know, right? So now it's a fashion show, right? And I'm trying to get this gum out of my hair. And I probably went over to Tony again, the guitar tech, you know, like, fuck, help, right? Because there's gum flying around. And I could just tell, I go, this is going to get really ugly. Now it falls down between my bass and my pants and starts getting all gummed up. So it's all over my black pus head shirt or whatever I had on, right? Or my Alchemy shirt and my black jeans, which, you know, pretty obvious. There's a bunch of white gunk getting scattered around, right? So now I'm like, fuck, I got to keep the bass over the jeans where the gum is, and the gum's on the back of the bass, and it's on the jeans, and it's, you know what I mean? So it's just, those were just a couple of...
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's all right. Joey Allen admitted he shit his spandex. So, you know, that one you can't.
Well, that could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We told him. He said, you invented the actual phrase shit show.
Well, you know, I'll tell you a third one, right? So speaking of Slayer, right? So I'm back in Megadeth. We're doing the American Carnage tour. We're in San Antonio at the AT&T arena there. And there were rows of chairs, right? It wasn't just an open seating. And so now, of course, I'm stage right. Fred is my tech working for me. And you know, I'm up singing something. And this warm liquid flies up and somebody throws a cup right up at me, hits me right in the face and drips down all over me. And I was pissed. I'm like, you motherfucker. Right. And I can't get too pissed because, I mean, again, we came from the days where, again, left shoes and people stage diving. And I mean, you know, we come from one of the rowdiest punk rock eras of metal. Right. So there's part of me that I'm like, you know, hey, man, from where we came from in the Bay Area thrash scene, half the audience was on stage with us. You know what I mean? So it was, but, you know, now here we are all these years later. And all of a sudden I go, wait a minute, the beer isn't warm, right? Like beer is cold. Why is there a warm drink flowing up at me? So I'm going, did this fucking guy pee in his cup and throw it at me? So I tell Fred, I go off stage and go, dude, somebody threw something at me. I think it might have been piss. And he's like, "Oh no, man!" So he's got his towel. He's trying to towel it off and clean me up, and and I'm just. It's fortunate it was toward the end of the set. And I'm just like, "Fuck, this sucks." And and you feel, slightly demoted.
Right, yeah.
Just how you feel a bit
violated.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
In front of 10,000 people, right? So, and usually it's like, dude, you rule, I love you, let me throw my piss at you, right? So I don't know, I guess that's how it is. It's never like I hate you, right? It's always like, dude, you rule, I love you. So this guy throws a cup of piss at me, and it's a term of endearment, apparently, right? So next day we go to Houston, and we're playing the Verizon Music Center there, and I walk in, Fred's, toweling everything off, and he's cleaning the bass up, and I go, it's on my strap, everything, right? And I say, please tell me it wasn't. He goes, it was.
Oh.
It was. He's cleaning it up. He goes, brother, I'm so sorry. And he's cleaning. He's freaking blankly pulling the pickups out, like trying to disinfect the bass, So
I think the line would have been. Is that my P bass?
Yeah, is that my? That's a good one, actually.
It's my P bass, yeah.
My new P bass.
Is it my P bass?
Hey, it's better to be pissed off than pissed off. Oh, no, never mind.
When we played Donington in '88 with Maiden, that was the thing. These fans, it was a rough. They just cram people in there, and the British, they would get these big 2-liter bottles of ale, and they would just drink them, and then they can't move, so you just fucking pee in your bottle, and then they would throw the bottle at us on stage. So again, I was already kind of used to this. I'd already seen this movie.
Still.
And in fact, I remember on that one, I'm kind of using my bass. I'm like fending off mud and,
Oh, God.
Yeah, so while you're playing and gigging, you're having to fight off, that shit coming at you. So, but this is real rock and roll.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
Well, I think he wins.
I do.
That's so far. That's one of the most original.
Yeah. You win.
You win,
hands down.
Well, I grew up in a different era,
Yeah,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Dave, what's your favorite place to play? Indoors or outdoors?
Honestly, wherever I'm at. That's
awesome.
My favorite.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And I can say that in all honesty. That's not a trite, made up answer. That's just wherever I'm. Sometimes the gig that you think would be the most horrific can be the most fun.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes when you get to play, the Enormo Dome, and you think it's going to be the coolest thing ever, it can be a bit sterile, or maybe the sound isn't great, or there's, you know what I mean? There's pressure that you wish wasn't there because you just want to get up and rock and play. And so, it's I guess, what is that? It's, I guess, about managing expectations. Probably.
Yeah.
I think Tyson hit it when we were talking to him one time, and he said they were playing a festival in Europe, and they felt so far away from the crowd.
Oh yeah,
that it was like you almost feel disconnected. Walk out of these
festivals, you're 50 to 100 feet away. I mean, because of the pit is so big, from a stadium deck, and that's where all of the, especially if they might be filming. When we filmed the Big Four, I mean, that was a huge pit there because they had, I think, the cameras and they had the dollies and everything set up down there in Sofia, Bulgaria. So, and look, that night the rain came. I mean, I thought for sure it was going to rain on Slayer just by where the clouds were in the sky, and I guess it showed up for us. I mean, we started so much for my meteorologist career. So, we come out and we play Holy Wars, and I think it was Holy Wars, and I mean the skies just dumped, and I remember Chris Broderick they had these kind of eaves troughs that would come off the roof of the stadium, off the deck, and it was just pouring rain. I mean, pouring. And Chris went out to play solo and stood under it. It was like he was standing under a waterfall.
Oh my God!
Dousing him, And so, but then sometimes there's a moment you're like, well, we didn't see this coming, and it sucks. It's cold. It's raining out. It's like, fuck it, just play into it, and just go. And someday there's a perfect example. It's like that was unexpected, but fuck it, looked good on camera,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
sometimes those moments are the ones that are going to be most memorable for not only yourself, but even the fans are like, you know, it was pouring out. These guys still came out and fucking ripped the roof off, or, you know, rip the Band-Aid off or something.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Any projects you've got or anything you've got coming up other than obviously, you know, the Metal Allegiance show and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I've got some stuff coming up. I can't yet talk about it, but
Okay.
It's really cool. I'm excited about it. You know, coming up next week, of course, there's, you know, I'll jump up, maybe do a little ultimate jam thing at the Whiskey, which would be very interesting to kind of be right in the belly of the beast, so to speak, in Hollywood. Yeah. You know, it's weird for me because LA, although I haven't lived there in 30 some years, you know, that was really my start, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I did all my legwork as a, you know, in the bands in Minnesota and doing all that kind of stuff, you know. I mean, that was the start. But I mean, you know, when I moved to LA in '83, that was the downbeat of where it really, that's when it got serious, you know, and I put myself on the map, you know, with starting Megadeth and everything. So, you know, for me, I hate seeing, you know, what's happened in LA and California there. So it'll be interesting to go there. I'm glad so far the events are still playing. And, you know, so all of that. So I guess that'll be the first thing. And then, you know, then we're down to NAMM. We got Metal Allegiance, and the Keith St. John had asked me to sit in with the Ronnie Montrose Remembered thing, which I love doing because I just love the songs. You know, Keith's great. The musicians are great. Those Montrose songs from those first couple records are just, you know, that takes me back to my high school bands, you know, playing Make It Last and, you know, all this shit, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I just love it, you know. So and then we got our NAMM, you know, the Ellefson Coffee booth, got a bunch of people coming by doing all that kind of stuff, so that'll be fun. And, you know, then after that, you know, the Bass Warrior tour that I'm doing in Europe, starting March 6th, you know, through the month of March, and that's with my Italian band over there with Eddie Martingelli and the guys. So we got a new set list of some new songs we're going to play. And, you know, I realize there's a lot of songs to choose from between the Ellefson solo stuff and No Cover record. We've got that Ellefson Soda record that we did. You know, of course, I always tap a couple of Megadeth tunes, you know. And I like to do these deep cuts, you know, these things that, even stuff that Kings of Thrash would play. You know, so, and then, you know, play a few of your, you know, kind of favorite things that you like growing up as well. So, you know, Bass Warriors, it gets to be kind of a nice melting. It's a smorgasbord, heavy metal smorgasbord of a lot of stuff, you know, so it's always a good time.
Well, Dave, we're going to get you out of here on this question here.
Okay. Oh, you're asking it.
Yeah, why not?
Go ahead there, fella.
When it's finally your time, what do you want your legacy to be?
You know, I hope that it would be, I left the place a little better than you found it before I was here. You know?
There you go.
Yeah.
Good on you, man.
Yeah, you know, we've had some good answers. We have, but I've always said that if we can get away from our own perceived value and have somebody validate that everything we've done was not a waste.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know, and from fans of your music, of your work,
yes,
throughout your career, the fact that you know there was no hiccup of having you as a guest here, and that means a hell of a lot to us.
Yeah.
You know, we've had some great people on the show that have been they're just you know humble, and then there's been other people that have been less fortunate as you have been, that you would think that we were going to interview Elvis.
Yeah.
You know, let's just put it at that level. And even in our own heart of hearts, we're going, nah.
That was disappointing.
Yeah. Or just, nah.
Nah.
Yeah, we're going to pass on that one. You know,
welcome to showbiz.
Yeah, exactly. So,
right? Yeah. It is what it is, and sometimes it ain't what you thought it was going to be.
Yep.
You know?
We want to extend to do it again, and a couple months from now, when you can talk about some of your new stuff, let's promote the hell out of it for you.
Yes.
And what we'll ask is stay right there. We're going to roll out with our credits. Now have you stay there, and then the three of us will wrap up and do our thank you. So,
Right.
you ready there?
Let's
Hefe?
do it.
All right. You've been listening to The Good,
The Band.
The Ugly. I'm Big Papa.
And I'm just Jeff.
That is Dave.
That's David Ellefson.
And my God, what a great
I know.
friggin' show. We want to thank our sponsors, of course, Ultimate Ears. Thank you so much for all you do for us. Our friends over at the Print Shop Underground,
Uncle Jimmy's live local music,
Blackheart Tattoos,
Snarky Productions,
and Hogwash.
Hogwash. Won't need it till spring, but
Oh, he's going to wash both of the bikes this year. Hey, remember what we always say to each other.
be good to each other.
Don't be a dick. See you guys next time. Don't say it.
Recording stopped.
Such a dick.
I did it.
Oh.
No, not